Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney has declared victory in the country's general election, seen as one of the most consequential in its history. After his win, Mark Carney addressed directly what many Canadians see as an almost existential threat posed by their North American neighbour. First, though, here's the moment that the Liberals realised their party had won the election. The Liberal Party were well behind in the polls just 3 months ago, but that was before Carney replaced Justin Trudeau as leader and US President Donald Trump upended relations and became the defining issue of the campaign. So here's Mr. Carney's victory speech, in which he directly addresses what he calls America's betrayal.
As I've been warning for months, America wants our land, our resources, our water, our country. Never. But these are not idle threats. President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us. That will never ever happen. But we also must recognize the reality that our world has fundamentally changed. There is also, for me, as I stand before you this evening, humility in recognizing that, well, many have chosen to place your trust in me, trust in the Liberal Party. Millions of our fellow citizens preferred a different outcome. And my message to every Canadian is this: no matter where you live, no matter what language you speak, no matter how you voted, I will always do my best to represent everyone who calls Canada home.
Now, although Mark Carney's Liberal Party have won, it still remains too close to call whether he'll secure a majority in Parliament. If not, he'll have to rely on other parties to govern. In his concession speech, the leader of the opposition Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, congratulated Mr. Carney, but also made clear that he wouldn't abandon his electoral base.
We hear your stories. We will carry those stories with us into Parliament. We will not forget the people for whom we work and for whom we fight every day. Now, I know that some of you might be disappointed that change did not get over the finish line tonight. Change takes time. Most of all, it requires that we never give up, because our people and our country are worth fighting for.
Well, our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette, is in Ottawa, and she gave us a sense of what was happening.
What an extraordinary moment in Canadian political history. The Liberal Party, which only months ago was trailing in the polls by double digits, led by a Prime Minister, a former banker who until months ago had no political experience, has surged ahead in these polls, winning the Liberals a fourth year in office, and Mark Carney the mandate to be the next Prime Minister of Canada. And what unthinkable turnaround. And it is a measure of this moment, an election where the person whose name wasn't on the ballot, President Donald Trump, transformed Canada's political landscape. Not just the swingeing tariffs he's imposed, but also the continuing threat to turn Canada into the 51st state has galvanized Canadians, have caused some Canadians to change their usual voting loyalties in order to put in charge of this country a 60-year-old economist and former banker who they believe is the man to solve the crisis of their lifetime. That's how Mark Carney put it. In his victory speech, though, while he thanked all of his supporters, he also mentioned several times that he would be the Prime Minister for all Canadians, recognizing that there were millions who didn't vote for him. His main challenger, Pierre Poilievre of the Conservatives, still did extraordinarily well in this poll, still got a very high percentage of the popular vote. Mark Carney knows that that is going to be something he's going to have to contend with. So he mentioned this. And he also mentioned, of course, repeatedly, the need to take on that threat from across the border. But he will have to deal with the problems from within as well. So he may soon find out that while he's set himself up as a problem solver, that the problems and crises confronting a banker are of a totally different order in many ways than those confronting a prime minister who has to be accountable to the people and to a country which has its own internal barriers to trade and its own long-standing regional tensions, which at times have threatened to pull this country apart.
Lise Doucette there in Ottawa. Let's pick up on some of what Lise was saying there with Dr. Graham Young, Head of Social and Public Policy at the University of Glasgow. And Dr. Young, you're also an expert in Canadian politics. What a difference 3 months make. How much of this do you think is it the Carney effect, replacing Justin Trudeau, or how much is it Donald Trump? Can you even quantify it?
So I think that's difficult to quantify. I think that this election was very much looking like it was going to be about cost of living, about the cost of housing, about grocery bills being high, all of these things that we are seeing across the rich world at the moment. Donald Trump came in and Donald Trump changed that. As you said, Donald Trump started making threats to Canada's sovereignty. Canada has, of course, entered a trade war against Donald Trump, or against the United States. And Justin Trudeau, our prime minister, had become very unpopular and has stepped down. Basically, what we have seen in this election is the most dramatic swing in modern Canadian political history. The Liberal Party was 24 points down just a few months ago, and a few weeks ago they were about 6 or 7 points up. It looks like with the election they are about 2 points up now, and we're just waiting to see if they will be able to form a majority government or have another minority.
So if they don't secure enough to form a majority government, what happens? Which parties do they have to rely on?
So they'll have to rely on the New Democratic Party, the NDP, which is the third largest party in Canada, our Social Democratic Party. The last government the Liberals had under Justin Trudeau, they had an agreement with the New Democratic Party where they relied on the New Democratic Party for votes. The New Democratic Party used that to get through legislation on pharmacare, so prescription drugs, and on dental care. The New Democratic Party's argument throughout this election has essentially been, you want us in the room to get similar progressive policies in the future. The New Democratic Party has seen a very large share of their voters move to the Liberal Party to try to keep out Poilievre and to try to keep out the Conservative Party. So their bargaining power is significantly less than it used to be. But the Liberals still need 4 more seats to get to a majority, and the NDP have 7, so they do hold the cards here.
Is it the end of the NDP? Arguably, we saw its leader announce that he will be standing down, Jagmeet Singh, saying in a quite emotional speech that he'll be standing down. Is that it for them?
Well, you never know what happens in politics, and I think in Canada we've really seen that in the last few months. I think the NDP certainly does need to go in a new direction. Their message was certainly not resonating with voters this time around, it seemed. However, this election was so exceptional with Donald Trump, with the threat posed by the United States, and with what a lot of NDP voters saw as the threats posed by the Conservative Party under Pierre Poilievre. If those factors are taken out, then they might be able to rebound, but they probably do need to improve their messaging as well.
And those initial concerns that Mark Carney hadn't been elected, obviously he was elected as the Liberal leader, but he hadn't won a public election. All of that goes away now, given this remarkable victory.
It does, certainly. I think that actually played into his favor a bit. He essentially pitched himself as a man for crisis, someone who helped Canada through the global financial crisis, someone who helped the UK through Brexit. Basically, his argument was, I can solve these problems. I may not be an elected politician. My opponent has spent his life in politics. He doesn't know how to solve these. So I think he got a lot of credit to be able to do that. And if he did have any slips along the way, a lot of people were very understanding.
Dr. Graham Young, expert in Canadian politics. Great to get your analysis. Thanks for joining us.